All right, hey guys, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Dustin, what's going on? I think I see one guy in the chat room already hanging out there. We're going to talk about something, and the reason that I'm doing this video right now is really for just transparency, because I don't get the bully pulpit that the government does. I don't get all the resources that the government does. So when the government wants to come after you and the government wants to attack you, they've got the media, they've got their press releases, they've got everything at their disposal. They've got the entire system that will come down on you and create a false narrative. And that's kind of what this video is going to do, which is to counter that false narrative. Now, let me give you a little bit of background. And let me make something clear, because this is going to be a short video because I want people to watch it and kind of rewatch it. So I'm not going to make this a 30-minute. Hopefully it's not even a 15-minute video. I'm trying to keep it really short. I went to the Tarrant County Commissioner's Court for one reason and one reason only. That was to essentially bring up and register my concern with the jail deaths at the Tarrant County Jail, specifically because my friend Mason Yancey died. Okay, now we weren't super good friends. I'm not saying we're like really, really close or anything, but when it's a government accountability activist who is killed in the hands of government, we should all be concerned about that. Now, we should be concerned about every death. Every death. Mason was no different. He was the 9th, he was the 60th, whatever number you want to give him. There were people before him that died. There's going to be people after him that died. And so I went there to talk about Mason, but also to talk about the fact that JPS up there in Tarrant County is lying. They're covering stuff up, and they are creating criminals based on their incompetence, based on their agenda, and based on their laziness. Just quite frankly, that's just the way it is. And that's what I wanted to talk about. I've already done a video about what happened, so I'm not going to go through that. But obviously I wasn't able to speak on the day when the jail deaths were on the agenda. I have added all of the Tarrant County Commissioner Court meetings to my calendar just as sort of an FYI, or so that if I'm in the area and I'm able to attend and there's something worth attending, then I know I can do something. It just so happened that Tuesday I was in the area, and because I had a court hearing that morning, I did not expect to be able to make the hearing because I had to go to another county for another hearing that afternoon. And I thought that the distance between Tarrant County and where I had to go was going to be too great. As it turns out, once I was done with my court hearing, I put it into my GPS, and I'm like, oh, this is not very far away. It's only about an hour drive as opposed to what I was thinking was a 3-hour drive. So I'm like, okay, I've got time to walk over to the County Commissioner's Court meeting and talk about what I didn't get to talk about last time, which was the jail deaths and JPS specifically, things that I've seen. And I did this in my own capacity, not in my capacity as an attorney for any individual, strictly as a person concerned about jail deaths, as a citizen who believes in government accountability. And so when I showed up on Tuesday, and I know better. I know how police are, and there's a reason I record everything when I'm engaged in activism, no matter how minor my activism is. When I'm engaged in activism, I record everything. Everything from the moment I am getting ready to approach the area where I'm doing activism to the event itself, up until I'm leaving, and I'm generally outside of the area, the immediate area, when I can turn it off. And I do that because, as many of you know, because police lie. And I need to document the fact that as an activist attorney, the police are out to get me. Not all of them, because I've actually got a lot of law enforcement clients. I do not represent law enforcement departments, and I do not represent law enforcement officers who are being sued based on their official capacity. But the law enforcement officers that I represent I represent because these are good cops who are being targeted by government. So I like to sue government. I don't sue people. And bad government is bad government, whether it's bad government against the citizens or bad government against good cops. So I'll always represent those officers that are trying to do the right thing, and city managers, mayors, whomever are retaliating against them because they're trying to do the right thing. So I turned my camera on outside before I even walked in the building, just to cover myself, because I didn't expect anything to happen. I really didn't. I'd already sent a letter to the county commissioner's court and the sheriff detailing what went wrong last. I didn't expect any problems. I go in there, get in the elevator. As soon as the elevator opens, there was an officer off to my left who tried to get my attention, but I ignored him because I have no reason to talk to a police officer. I'm not there to talk to a police officer. I'm there to talk to the county commissioner's court. So I kept walking. There were several other officers outside the door of the county commissioner's court, including Chief Deputy Driscoll, who's outside there. And I end up getting assaulted because he's asking me if I'm carrying. I tell him I don't answer questions. One of his thugs, Joust, J-A-U-S-S, Deputy Joust, Sergeant. First, Sergeant George assaults me by grabbing me and pushing me. And then Joust grabs me and wrenches my arm behind my back, grabs me violently on my left arm. And I mean, look, it's getting, as time goes on, these bruises get actually darker on my arm here. So you can see how hard they grabbed me. It wasn't gentle. All because they were trying to ask to see my license to carry. Never mind my law enforcement status, but that's what this is about. So I didn't get in there again. Actually, I did. I got in there after they violated my Fourth Amendment right and forced me to identify by showing my papers. But here's what this video is about. Yesterday, I got documents from my open records request. Everything I'm going to show you is available to anyone publicly. These are public documents, so there's nothing here that's classified. I'm not going to go into classified information. There's nothing here that is protected or sensitive or law enforcement only eyes. I filed like a normal citizen an open records request. Now, because these records are about me, I got them unredacted, okay? So you're going to see it, and I don't see anything on here, and I'm not going to provide anything on here that shows information that I don't want y'all to see, like social security numbers and stuff like that. But everything in here, I'm not worried about exposing because it's not classified, it's not personal, it's not going to give away my personal information. So let me bring this up here. But apparently back in 2015, 2016, I was in a battle with DPS. We had gotten open carry. They didn't like the fact that I was challenging them because they refused to recognize my law enforcement officer license as valid. And I ended up winning that fight about using that as my identification to get into the Capitol. Can you turn your mic down a little bit? It's really hot. Yes, I can. Is that a little bit better? Hopefully that. Is that a little bit better? Hopefully that's a little bit better for you guys. Sorry about that. I turned it up because I thought something was wrong before. All right. I hope that's pushed the mic away a bit. Got major reverb. All right, let's do that too. Okay, much better. Yeah, I just had to turn down the volume on it. Sorry about that, guys. All right, it's good. And anyway, so what ended up happening was DPS instituted this investigation into whether or not I am a... Does it still need to be lower? Okay, it's good now. Whether or not I'm a retired law enforcement officer, because they don't like the fact that I have the same privilege as they do. And, you know, it wasn't until they started this battle with me that I even started exercising these privileges. You know, if they had just left me alone long ago, they'd have just left me alone, I wouldn't have even gone after, sought after, and obtained these credentials, because I don't believe that just by virtue of me being choosing a profession in government as a federal agent, and then I retire and I go back to the civilian life, that I should have greater rights than anyone else. That's why up until 2016, 2015, I didn't even go and get my LEOSA, because I didn't want to be treated differently. I was no longer a federal agent. I was no longer practicing, and so I wanted to be treated exactly the same as everyone else. But then I realized, wait a minute, all these guys, you know, they're sitting there pushing their power and their authority around. They're around here proudly displaying the fact that, look, I have more rights than you do. I have more rights than you do. And my sole goal in getting my LEOSA is saying, well, no, you don't, at least as it relates to me. So I went and got my LEOSA. That's why I did it. I didn't do it because I wanted special favors. I get special favors. I don't like it. I work every day at the Capitol trying to remove barriers to you being able to do what I'm able to do, because I'm just a citizen right now. That's, even though I've got this stupid little card, I am just a U.S. citizen. I am no different today than I was 25 years ago, actually 35 years ago, 31 years ago, when I joined the military. So let me bring this up here. This is the investigation that was done on me. And I'm going to show you why I say this. And let me tell you, one of the reasons that I'm so successful in court cross-examining law enforcement officers is because I was a career investigator. Okay. I know how investigations are supposed to be run. I know what questions to ask. I know what questions have answers, which ones need answers. I know what evidence should be looked for. I know how to follow leads. I know how to develop questions that will lead to leads, and how to really prosecute a scene and how to prosecute a criminal act. Okay, now I'll get into all that a little bit later, but so here's, this thing starts off, here's the case number. Again, if you guys want to do an open records request on this, I have no problems with you doing that, because I have, whoops, I don't know what this thing is doing. I must have clicked something. This is public record. Now you'll get a redacted copy. I'm not going to show the stuff that's got the personal information on it. You'll probably get a redacted copy. I don't know if this is my PID number. So every law enforcement officer in Texas has a PID number. This is mine, 443977. That's my Texas PID number. I have a different number as a federal agent, but that's my Texas PID number. So if you're, you know, anybody that wants to get public information about me through TCOLE, that's the number you need about me, because they'll ask you, well, what's his PID number? Okay. You're not going to find much, because I wasn't a Texas peace officer. You'll probably just find this, as a matter of fact. This is probably the only thing you'll find, because these are the only records I have with TCOLE. Baseline definition contained 18 U.S. Code 926C, and the duties of an Army counterintelligence agent. Christopher Grisham does not meet the requirements of being a qualified law enforcement officer under 18 U.S. Code 926C. Now, what I want to do is I want to go over what that means. What is 18 U.S.C. 926C? Because it says right here, does not meet. If you look at, I mean, it's underlined, it's in bold. Well, gee, gosh, they're quoting a law here. If they're quoting a law, then by golly, he must not meet the elements, right? So let me show you 18 U.S.C. 926C. Okay. This is 18 United States Code 926C. This is also known as the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act. Okay, that's what created this program, is 18 USC 926C. It's the carrying of concealed firearms by qualified retired law enforcement officers. That's why if I ever carry, and I carry solely under the authority of 926C, you'll always see me carrying concealed, because I'm only covered under 926C if I'm concealed carrying. I can open carry under my Texas LTC and under our constitutional carry bills, but I can only conceal carry under 926C. So here's the law, right? Notwithstanding any other provision or law of any state or political subdivision, an individual who is a qualified law enforcement officer and who is carrying the identification required by subsection D may carry a concealed firearm that has been shipped or transported in interstate or foreign commerce subject to subsection B. What that means is, if I've got this card, I can carry in all 50 states and can't be stopped. Okay, it doesn't matter. I can go to California, I can go to Illinois, as long as I'm carrying concealed. And of course, as long as I'm carrying a firearm that has been shipped or transported in interstate commerce. That's how they get this under the Commerce Clause. Section B, this section shall not be construed to supersede or limit any laws of the state that permit private persons. So in other words, just because I've got a 926C card, I can't say you can't keep me off your property. Your private property rights don't exist. So if somebody tries to tell you, hey, I'm retired law enforcement, you can't tell me to disarm. Wrong. Now, I will tell you, I think there's a bill right now, and maybe I'll make that a different video, but there is a bill to actually undermine this, where if you own private property and someone's law enforcement, that you can't keep them from carrying there. That's another story. That's another, but this just says that my little 926C card does not allow me to bypass 30.6, 30.7 signs. It does not allow me to bypass people who don't want me on their property with my guns, okay? Next, it doesn't prohibit or restrict the possession of firearms on any state or local government property or installation. So in other words, if the Capitol, for instance, banned anyone that's not a certain person from carrying firearms into the Capitol, like let's say they only allow armed active duty peace officers to carry into the Capitol, my 926C card would not allow me to carry into the Capitol, because it's specific right there. It doesn't apply to private property rights, and it doesn't apply to state government buildings that the state has decided are off limits, okay? Now, what is a retired law enforcement officer? A qualified law enforcement officer is someone who is separated from service in good standing with the service as a law enforcement officer. So I'm retired, I meet that. I'm retired law enforcement, I meet that. And before such separation was authorized by law to engage in or supervise the prevention, detection, investigation, or prosecution of, or the incarceration of any person for any violation of law, and had statutory powers of arrest or apprehension. Okay, now I'm going to take this section, I'm going to come back to this section because this is a little more involved. Number 3, before such separation, served as a law enforcement officer for an aggregate of 10 years or more. So I don't even have to be retired law enforcement. I can serve honorably, be honorably discharged as law enforcement, and as long as I did so for 10 years at least, I qualify for a 926C card. Okay, so I qualify for that because not only did I serve more than 10 years, but I'm also retired. So it's a separation. Separated from any service with such agency after completing any applicable probationary period of such service. That doesn't really apply to me. I already did that. All right, number 4. What this section means is that every year I have to qualify on my handgun. I have to do a qualification. Trust me, it's not difficult. It's 50 rounds on a giant silhouette from about 7 meters away. Okay, anybody, most blind people, I think Stevie Wonder can pass the qualification requirements that are met here. This just means that I have to do an annual qualification. Okay, let me get something out of my pocket here. This is my annual qualification card that I carry. It's due in July is when I'm due to requalify. However, I am requalifying in, this weekend. To be honest with you, I qualify several times per month because I shoot all the time. I'm sorry, my phones just keep ringing. So anyway, that's what Section 4 is. Section 5 has not been found by, in other words, I'm not mentally unfit. I don't have some agreement where that I'm not qualified, but if they separate me for mental health, any of that. So this is mental health section is what 5 is. I don't have any mental health problems that prevent me from being able to carry a firearm. Number 6, I'm not under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Can't be that. I can't be prohibited from law from receiving a firearm. And then it says the required identification required in this subsection is a photo identification issued by the agency. And it's also got to indicate that I was carrying a concealed firearm. I've been tested that I meet the standards of qualification and all those kinds of things. This is just the card that I have to carry, right? This is my, and here, I'll even show it to you. This is what it looks like. I even brought up a copy. This is what this is what my card looks like right here. Don't worry, oh my gosh. I don't live at this address anymore, so I'm not worried about showing it because I don't live here anymore. But this is an example. This is an old card. This is an example of what my card used to look like right here. And you see right up here, qualified DOD law enforcement officer. Qualified DOD law enforcement officer. This is what I was showing to Tarrant County PD or Tarrant County Sheriff's Office when I was telling them, when they were trying to say I am not qualified law enforcement, then what's this? Is this fraudulent? Is this fake? What is this? And again, I only show that because this is not my address anymore. So if you're trying to kill me, you're not going to find me there. Good luck. All right. Now let's go back up, and then there's just some definitions here. So that's the law, right? Now let me go back up here to the one that's important, okay? Because this is the one where they're trying to say in this investigative report, so notwithstanding any other provision of law or whatever. So I'm going to make a split screen here. There we go. Let me go over here. And, maybe I don't do a split screen because it might be too small for y'all to see if I do a split screen. But I'm going to do it anyway. All right, just because I want to show each of these things. All right. I swear my phone rings nonstop. I wish people would just email me. Let me get back. Here it is right here. So this is the section I said I was going to come back to right here. Before said separation was authorized by law to engage or supervise the prevention, detention, investigation, or prosecution. This is, over here on the left of your screen, is Army Regulation 381-20. This is an unclassified regulation. Anybody can look up Army Regulation 381-20 for reference. It's called the Army Counterintelligence Program. Okay, you can see right here. Whoops. You can see right here. It's unclassified. I did not gather anything that is in my own personal possession. Everything you're about to see today, I either got from open records or just downloaded from the internet. So anybody can download it from the internet. Just to make sure that I'm covering all my bases. Hey, and thank you for that. Thank you for that, Bips Solar Bear. Does the Second Amendment allow us to carry firearms into the courthouse? The courts have said no. The courts have said no, and there is a good argument. And I say that the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. However, there is a history and tradition under the Bruin Standard that does support the ban of firearms into a courthouse, or at least a courtroom. So does the Second Amendment allow it? If you were to ask me if I was the god of Second Amendment, I would say no. But the case law and the history and tradition in the United States do allow for the Second Amendment to be restricted there, just like in a jail. I mean, it says shall not be infringed. Well, if you're in jail, it's being infringed, right? But the history and tradition and the intent behind it, obviously there are certain places where society has deemed that's not the case. All right, getting back to this. So again, this is Army Regulation 38120. Let me go back down to page 13 here. Chapter 8. Where are you at? There you are. Chapter 4, excuse me. All right, so this is, Chapter 4 is the counterintelligence investigations. Now remember, what's one of the words here? Investigation. What's one of the words here? Detection. What's one of the words here? Prevention. All CI investigations, oh, well, see, I don't even have to go any further because it just said the regulation that applies to what I did in the Army says right there that CI does investigations, okay? Now, of course, I can't just investigate whether or not a ham sandwich is better than a turkey sandwich, so I've got to be able to investigate a violation of law. So in my CI investigations that I have highlighted here, am I able, what are there laws that I'm investigating, or am I investigating what is the best Subway sandwich, or is a soft shell taco at Taco Bell better than a hard shell taco, or does the Doritos taco beat them both? And the latter is the truth. Investigations under Army CI jurisdiction. Let me go back here. Investigation. And it doesn't say and, it does say prevention, detection, investigation, and prosecution. It says or. It's a very important word here. In order to meet the qualification of 926C, I have to do one of these, and it's got to be the investigation, prosecution, detection, prevention of any violation of law. So, here it is. Army CI jurisdiction includes the following. Treason. Is that a crime, ladies and gentlemen? Is that if you commit treason, are you violating the law? Yes. You're violating the Constitution even. Is espionage and spying? Is there a crime against espionage and spying in the United States? Yes. Is subversion a crime in the United States? Is it a violation of law to engage in subversion? Yes. Is it a violation of law to engage in sedition? Yes. Is it a violation of law to engage in foreign intelligence service directed sabotage? That's what FIS is, foreign intelligence service. When a foreign government engages in sabotage, whether it's the the energy, grid, water, any sabotage directed by a foreign government. Okay, that's what that means. Is that against the law? Yes, it is. Are terrorist activities directed against the Army against the law? Yes, they are. Are assassinations or incapacitation of Army personnel by terrorist groups, is that against the law? Yes, it is. Okay, there you go. I've met this section that I investigate, I detect, and I try to prevent any of these things from happening, okay? And I'm not just investigating sandwiches, I'm investigating any violation of law. And had the statutory powers of arrest and apprehension. Geez, Chapter 4 doesn't really say, am I allowed to arrest or apprehend people? I don't know. And of course, there's more here. There's some other smaller things that we investigate. So now let's go down to Chapter 8. Of the Army Regulation 381-20. This is Chapter 8. It's called Employment, Use, and Special Administration of U.S. Army Counterintelligence Personnel and the Authority of CI Special Agents. Now, let's go down a little bit further here. Talks about our clothing, our military privileges. Oh, here we go. Weapons right here. This is going to come in later. Was I authorized to carry a gun? Because that's one of the things in here as well. CI personnel may carry weapons openly or concealed as required in the performance of peacetime official duties. Oh, well, okay, I was able to carry a weapon. That's one of the requirements. All right. Freedom of movement. Oh, I'm able to administer oaths. Oh, wait, what's this right here? Apprehension authority pursuant to what? 10 United States Code. But wait a minute. This right here, under the 926C, says that I must have these powers of arrest under United States Code Title 10. This says right here that I do, that CI special agents are authorized to apprehend any person subject to the UCMJ that I suspect of committing the Chapter 4 violations I read earlier. So there you go. That's the entire section right there. You didn't have arrest authority. You didn't have investigative authority. You didn't have the authority to carry a gun. You were just a CI agent. And this is Tcole. Let's go back to this. This is the Tcole investigation right here. I just went over the entire 18 USC 926C with you. I compared it to 381-20, which is the Army regulations specifically related to Army counterintelligence agents. I specifically showed you in black and white how what I did in the military 100% meets 926C. But what does the law enforcement watchdog, the agency in Texas responsible for training law enforcement officers, what did they conclude? Look, this is the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. That's Tcole right there. Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. That's it. But what did the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, who's required to enforce standards, say? Christopher Grisham does not meet the requirements of 926C or Texas CCP 2.122. Well, that's odd. I think I just showed you that I did. Now let's keep going on here. Overview. C2 stipulates that a qualified law enforcement officer must be authorized to investigate any violation of law. Army counterintelligence agents are not authorized to investigate any criminal charges and have a very limited scope of authority. That is weird. There's my phone again. That is weird because I just showed you in AR 381-20, Chapter 8-12, that I do arrest people for that I have arrest authority and investigative authority and criminal charges. Item 3A addresses the status of service prior separation and requires the person to have served as a law enforcement officer. Army counterintelligence agents are not federal law enforcement officers. Let me show you something here. I'm going to show you something else here. This was created, and this is also a public website. I did not know this actually until I got this open records request back and I looked into it. I did not realize that this is actually a government website. This is run by, and I'm going to show you a little bit later in some of the documents where it even says in the official military documents that if you have questions, refer to leosaarmy.com. And this tells you, here's the facts right here. 926C retired or separated. 31 series MOSs, 35 Lima. That's what I was. 35 Lima. These are the MOSs that are law enforcement. Now, let's go down here where it says, is Army CI, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Not actively serving. They're retired. Here it is. Sorry, guys. Really quick. I didn't expect to come over here real quick. I do. General questions. Maybe it was under there. Oh, here it is. Are U.S. Army counterintelligence agents authorized to receive LEOSA credentials? Yes. What? But no, that's weird. That's weird because the Army, which runs this website, the Army says that the U.S. Army counterintelligence are authorized to receive LEOSA credentials. But here's something odd, right? The Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, who is responsible for training and educating law enforcement officers throughout Texas. Do you want to know why law enforcement in Texas is so broken? It's because of Tcole. Tcole is the reason you have such stupid officers on the streets. Tcole is the reason that officers think they can get away with stuff that they can get away with. Why? Because they come up with these things that says 3I addresses the status of a service prior to separation, requires a person to be served as a law enforcement officer. Army counterintelligence agents are not federal law enforcement officers. I wonder if Tcole told the Army that. Hey, Army, you're not a law enforcement officer. You're not allowed to receive law enforcement officer credentials. Well, that's not what the Army says. Gee, Tcole, what's going on? What's going on, Tcole? And you dumbass chiefs out there that are sitting there saying, but CJ, Tcole said, okay, well, I'm showing you the proof. I showed you the proof right here that they're wrong. Either you're wrong, or this is a felony because I've got a fraudulent document right here. Now, this is not my current document. Okay, I want to make that very clear. The only reason I'm showing this to you, because it does have an address on there, is because this is not a current document. This is a prior one. Now, look at this. When did I become a qualified law enforcement officer? 2011. Weird. All right, let's get back to this thing. Number 3 of their overview of 926C. Item D1 describes the photo ID used by the employee agency used to identify the person as having law enforcement, as having been employed as a police officer or law enforcement officer. What's that say up there, right underneath Department of the Army? Qualified, DOD, law enforcement officer. Man, I don't know what's wrong with you people. So then it goes down to a comparison of Air Force OSI, Naval Criminal Investigation Services, Army CID, and Army CI. Look at this. This is what they're relying on. This is literally what they're using as evidence that counterintelligence special agents are different somehow. Why? Because the recruiting website, let's don't worry about the regulation and the law. Okay, this is the law, but that's not what Tcole is relying on here. No, they're relying on a recruiting website. Now, are not recruited or classified as federal law enforcement agents. Air Force OSI. So the Army does it different than almost every other service. Okay, the Army is special in many ways. In the Army, we have 2 paths you can go down. Really 3. MP, which CID, the MPs are the military police are kind of a feeder for CID. So you've got the MPs and CID, kind of the same thing, but CID is like the FBI to a local law enforcement. I guess that's kind of the best way to do it. Or the felony versus misdemeanor type stuff, right? Air Force OSI combines counterintelligence and criminal investigation division. The Navy combines, so if you're in NCIS or you're in Air Force OSI, you can do all of that. And I'm already at 30 minutes, but I guess this needs to be more in depth. They combine those, whereas the Army, they divvy out and they separate what counterintelligence covers and what CID covers. So CID covers things like murder, drugs, fraud, basic the kind of stuff that really the FBI kind of covers. And you've got the FBI and you got the CIA. That's probably a better example of the difference between CID and CI. CI is more like the CIA. CID is more like the FBI. Okay, when it comes to what's investigated, but they're all law enforcement. Same with NCIS. Army CID covers, like I said, street crimes and heck, even white collar crimes and stuff. And heck, they even do a lot of, and there's a lot of overlap, just like with CIA and FBI. There's a lot of overlap between CI and CID. So, but I think it's funny that this investigator came to these conclusions using recruiting websites. And then this is the last thing I'm going to show you. I just showed you 3-1-20. She did mention 4-2. And notice this, because I showed you under, let me go back to page 13 here. If you notice, look at all these crimes. Treason, espionage, spying, subversion, sedition, sabotage, terrorism, assassination. We're also allowed to go after deserters in the military, right? Those are other things that we're allowed to do. We also look into unauthorized disclosure of classified information. We also look into security, like I'm missing the word, but like installation security and stuff like that. So but her reading, the TCOLE's reading, okay, because this is TCOLE's reading, is that it's limited in scope because it generally only deals with counterterrorism, counterintelligence, terrorism, and espionage. Wait a minute, are you saying that terrorism is not a crime? Espionage is not a crime? And so they really try to minimize this, but I think it's funny that she talks about this, but doesn't even talk about, I mean, terrorism is probably one of the more serious aspects of what we did. And it's really what I spent probably 90% of my time on. But, well, no, I take it back. It's probably 60% was on terrorism, 30% was on espionage, and then, the other 10% was on those other things, generally. And then which this is kind of funny, she quotes misuse of B and C and representative credentials. I don't know why. I don't go around using, because with this section, actually, I'll show it to you. You know what? I'm not even gonna I'm all about receipts, right? Receipts. Don't just take my word for it. Receipts. The badge represents the enforcement aspect. Wait a minute, I didn't think we did enforcement work. Anyway, of CI. So it's restricted to CI duties, badge and credentials or representative credentials use for other than official intelligence duties is sufficient basis for disciplinary action and removal from such duties. This is talking about as a special agent, right? We were not allowed, as a matter of fact, in CI, the way that we handle things, because we had such a varied mission, is we always kept our B's and C's generally, depending on, and it depended on what unit you were in. There were some units where I carried my B's and C's every day, everywhere I went. But there were some units, like when I was in a tactical unit, where it wasn't really necessary, because the 902nd is usually who covered down on most of that kind of stuff. So even in the CI world, sometimes you were, even though you always had those authorities, your specific duties changed based on what unit you were in. But falsification, forgery, alteration, photographing or copying, in other words, using them for to try and do this.
Your mic is kind of.
Is my mic messing up?
Well, it sounds bad. I wasn't sure.
Someone said it sounded bad.
Yeah.
I had trouble with it earlier too. I had to replug it in. All right, my son just told me my mic sounds bad, but nobody's saying anything about it.
Well, here, talk. This is what it sounds like.
Okay, I'm going to say something. My wife's going to. Well, they'll tell me.
That's what it said.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, a little muffled, they said. Okay. Anyway, this is just about so I can't take my badge and credentials and like show up at a crime scene and go, oh, I'm here to help. I can't do that. I can't show up at a murder scene because, and I'm letting you guys read this because I'm not allowed. The purpose and the intent of this, and you can read it yourself, just to summarize for you, what this means is I can't just walking around, pretend that I have authority where I don't have authority. That's what this is talking about. Okay? And then the only thing, so this right here, use of badge or credentials as identification when not on official intelligence duties. For example, if I were shopping at a post exchange. Now, when I'm applying for a law enforcement officer safety act, retired credentials or retired certification, that's not this. Because I'm not using it as a form of identification. I'm using it actually as a part of showing what my duties were. So that you can read this yourself, but that's so I don't know what she's talking about here. See page 11 of the narrative. And then section 9.9, the trophy program. So, I mean, there's a whole narrative here, but just based on, it doesn't even matter what she says underneath here. And this is why I'm going to kind of cut this off. If you guys want the full report, do an open records request. You can read the whole thing. I have nothing to hide here. I just know that their conclusions are absolutely wrong. But anyway, the Counterintelligence Badge Trophy Program. So it's when you retire in the Army for CI, they retire your badge. And I think almost every department, every law enforcement department does something like this. If you see a cop, look, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter. If you see a police officer at the local, state, federal level, and they're retired, and they come up to you with a retired badge, this is nothing. This means nothing. It literally, I don't carry this to in any way use it as identification. It's just there. I have no authority for it. That is not even this one, because this is a reproduction, so that I have like a trophy. But you can get your actual badge, and my badge number was 11666. So if you ever want to come up to me and say, CJ, give me your name and badge number. First of all, I'm gonna tell you to pound sand, because I'm not in the military anymore. But my badge number was 11666, and when you retire, that badge just stays with the department. It would get reassigned if you don't take part in the Counterintelligence Badge Trophy Program and get your badge retired. You can request, not only do you retire, but you request to have your badge and credentials retired. So the actual one that I carried around, the actual badge, the actual credentials, and actually what's really funny is the one that they actually retired, I retired around the time that they changed what the badge looks like. And so I think I only carried that particular badge less than a handful of times, because I had the old school badge. Now they've got like some holographic thing on it and everything. So I actually had two badges, but they retired the most recent one. I don't even know what happened to my old one. I really would have loved to have kept that one too. And it allows us to do one of two things. You can put it onto a plaque, or they can encase it in lucite. This kind of stuff right here. Lucite. You can have it encased in lucite as something for you to display. That's all that is. But they're trying. So that's why when the chief says, "Oh, your badge is nothing but a trophy," but he wasn't talking about my badge. He was actually talking about this card, because this is what I was showing him. Now, at one point, I did show him the metal version of it. I'm like, this is what my badge. This was my badge. It was my badge. But this is what he was talking about when he said this right here is nothing more than a trophy, because TCOLE doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to what the Army the Counterintelligence Badge Trophy Program is. That's what it is. Now, I bring this up again. This is the case number right here. I mean, if you guys don't believe anything I'm saying, you want to read the whole thing. Oh, CJ, you're only doing the overview. Well, yeah, because the overview is pretty cut and dry here. Christopher Grisham does not meet this. And if that's the case, if this is true, why did I get this? And again, for those of you just joining us, this is an old card. You're not going to find me at this address, okay? No one lives there. And this is an old card. So I've got a new card ever since I moved. I'm just going to go ahead and close that out. But does not meet. Says I'm not authorized to investigate anything. I'm not a federal agent. And this just talks about what the photo ID is requested, and I just showed that to you. All right, guys, so I did that because Tcole and Tarrant County Sheriff's Office is lying. I don't even blame so much on this aspect Tarrant County, because Tcole, they contacted Tcole. Now that's where they went wrong. If they didn't believe me, they should have charged me with fraud. They should have charged me with falsifying a federal document. That's probably what they were trying to do. But no one's ever, oddly enough, the fact that I don't meet the requirements of having a 926C card, but yet I carry a 926C card and have since at least 2016 when this report was done, why has no one charged me with falsifying a federal document? It's a felony. It's a 15-year felony. I could face up to 15 years for carrying a fraudulent document like that. But yet, no one has charged me with any of that. But yet they'll go out there publicly when there's a bunch of cameras around, when I'm sitting there trying to talk some sense into a deputy chief, or chief deputy, excuse me, when I'm trying to talk some sense into him and educate him on the law, and he's got all those cameras around, and he thinks he's a badass. Oh, you're not a qualified law enforcement officer. I can't really fault him so much for that, other than I showed him the proof, because he's just going off of what Tcole told him. Again, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, which is the Texas agency and commission responsible for educating and training law enforcement officers, created this false report that now has law enforcement thinking they can hem me up because I'm not a retired peace officer, despite the fact that I carry credentials of a retired peace officer. There you go. So that's the end of it. Again, this is my PID number.
Let's not forget that stupid deputy chief can't go out and fucking educate himself.
Yeah, the chief deputy could have gone out there and educated. Oh, by the way, apparently he was a veteran as well. I don't know what. I think he was Navy or something. I don't know. And supposedly he's also was an attorney. What does that tell you? An attorney going to be a cop as opposed to the other way around. I can tell you one of the reasons is because he's got a $200,000 salary. Wow, you want to make some good money? Go work for Tarrant County Sheriff's Department, because he's making $200,000 a year. I don't know many attorneys that wouldn't change that, especially new attorneys and young attorney associates or associate attorneys. Excuse me. I mean, unless you're a partner, you're not making those kinds of dollars as an attorney. So he's either a really crappy attorney, which I think is the truth. I think when you're a really bad attorney, you go and you become a cop because you suck at the law. And I think that was the case with him, because he hasn't been right yet. But he could have done his own investigation on this stuff. He as a law enforcement officer, he could have been like, wait a minute, because I know they showed him this report, because the way now that I've seen it myself, a lot of the comments he made make sense to me, because now I see where he got it from. He got it from Tcole. But all he had to do was go, wait a minute, this report and CJ mentions 18 USC 926C. Maybe I should go read 18 USC 926C. And okay, what does that say? Okay, now let me go look and see, is there a regulation or something out there that identifies? And let me show you how easy this would have been. I'm going to show you how easy this would have been for the chief to learn something, right? Let's just go to Google here. I don't like Google. No, I'm just gonna. I don't even like giving them my bandwidth. I'm gonna. Whoa, no, stop. I don't want people to see my mail. So I'm gonna do Army Counterintelligence Agents Law Enforcement. U.S. Army Counterintelligence, you can read all of that. Now look, here's you've got the authority of Army Counterintelligence agencies, authority to execute warrants and make arrests. He could have figured that one out. Army Counterintelligence Special Agents Association. I mean, it's not hard. What's this say? Wise advices. Are recognized federal law. I mean, even Google tells you this stuff. But even if you don't want to believe in Google, you can go and find the regulation, like I just showed you. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. Oh, what's this? I don't know what part-time commander is. The 35 Lima counterintelligence agent is law enforcement. As such, he or she does carry a badge and has arresting powers. Good golly. And then, if you were an inquisitive law enforcement person like I am, you never take Google on it at its word. You look for the law. You go and you read the law. Well, what's the law in the Army? The Army Counterintelligence Program under Army Regulation 381-20. You can also look at 381-10. Let me see. I might even have 381-10 in here. If you guys are bored and you want to get nerdy, this is an unclassified U.S. Army intelligence activities. Oh, let me show you also this. So this was, but CJ, the law changed. I kid you not. Tcole told me today. Today they told me. Well, as of, something changed in 2020 or 2021. I can't remember. I have this on a recorded phone call. I have a recorded phone call from 2 weeks ago as well, talking to Tcole. Oh, well, something changed. It was changed in 2020, and this investigation was 2016. Oh, really? So the rules changed in 2020 about whether or not we're law enforcement officers. Remember that 38120 I showed you? Let me go back up to the top here. The Army Counterintelligence Program. So surely, Tcole, if something changed, this regulation is dated 2020 or later, right? You guys see that down here? 15 November 1993. This is the most recent version. 15 November 1993. Since 15 November 1993, the Army Counterintelligence Program has recognized CI agents as law enforcement. All right, guys, that's it. I did this for transparency and openness because they've been making false statements to the media, and by media I mean anybody with a camera. They've been making false statements to the county commissioner's court. They've been making false statements, well, hell, to me, because apparently what I never knew is that the Tcole recognition of my retire. So I've always been, and as long as I've been carrying my card, have been a retired law enforcement officer. But apparently Tcole stopped recognizing me, which it doesn't matter because just like I told Chief Driscoll that they don't get to decide what's a law enforcement officer. The law decides what's a law enforcement officer. And it's very clear. So I didn't want to just have me arguing in the press, them arguing in the press, them saying whatever, me saying whatever. I brought the receipts. That's what all this stuff is. This, by the way, is the requirements for having to do my annual qualification that Tcole requires. And this is how I qualify each year. This is what I have to do. So 50 rounds fired at ranges from point blank. Look, this is how easy law enforcement qualification is. 50 rounds fired at point blank range to at least 15 yards, with at least 20 rounds or beyond, at or beyond 7 yards. So 30 rounds within 7 yards and 20 rounds at least past 7 yards, and at least one timed reload. And yeah, so that's what I have to do every year. And I pretty much max it out every year I qualify. So, because it's not hard, especially when you're a combat veteran and you've actually had to shoot at people and you had to do it a lot with both a handgun and a rifle, and grenades, by the way. So these are our minimum standards. This is what a law enforcement officer has to do to be a qualified law enforcement officer, as well as for Tcole purposes on certification. So as long as I do that, Tcole is required to certify me under the law. You guys take care, be safe, be free. I will see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this and you learned a little bit of something. My 10-minute video is an hour long. I apologize.